Article 30 of the 1995 Constitution stipulates that every Ugandan has a right to education. This is expounded further by the national directives that state that the state, that is the government, should ensure that every Ugandan has equal opportunities to attain the highest standard of education. In line with this, Parliament passed and the President assented to the Higher Education Student Financing Act. As a result of passing that law, students are getting loans and we've seen a higher number of people enrolling for higher education. However, with the poverty levels in Uganda increasing, are these loans actually viable? This is Face the Citizens, and I'm your host, Iguma Gabriel. Welcome to the show. I have a panel of 4 that's experienced in the education sector, but also members of parliament. And we have an audience, a live audience that will be asking us questions. But there's you at home watching us by television. We thank you very much for being a part of the show. Let me introduce very quickly our panel. I'll start with the National Secretary for the Federation of Non-Education Institutions, Mr. Patrick Kaboyo. Welcome.
Thank you.
Also with us is Mr. Michael Wanyama. He is the Executive Director of the Higher Education Student Financing Board. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much.
From Parliament, the Honorable Matthias Mpuga. He is a Member of Parliament for Masaka Municipality. He's also the Shadow Minister for Education. Honorable, welcome back to Face the Citizens.
Thank you.
Because we've had you on the show before.
Yeah, great being here.
All right. And then finally, Honorable Mwine Mpaka. He's the Western Youth Member of Parliament. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Let's start with you, Mr. Wanyama. What is the status of, the loans being given to students? How exactly is that performing?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, the interviewer. I must say we are doing very well because if you know, if you have been following the scheme very well, we started in 2014 with a very small number, and that was 1,201. And this number has kept on growing to the current number, which is 2,943, more than double when we started. Of course, all that is aimed at increasing access to higher education. And these students are spread in a number of universities. While we started with only 12 universities, largely the public universities, we are now talking about all the public universities that are 9 and 10 private chartered universities. So in a way, we have also widened the scope in terms of where you can access higher education from. In addition to that, we're also looking at all other tertiary institutions. These are the ones that offer diplomas. So I must say that there have been all good intentions by government to widen, broaden the access to higher education. Remembering that as you gave the preamble of the Constitution, the issue was that many Ugandans were failing to access higher education, coming from all the good interventions that the government has set up, the UPE, the USE, the OPOLET. So we saw an upsurge in the number of students who are qualifying at the basic level. So the cycle was to ensure that the government completes the cycle, that these people now must access higher education. Not only accessing higher education, but we also know the benefits that you get when you get higher education. The students we are sponsoring, those who have completed, I keep on telling them that they are quite different from when they join higher education. So we're on the right track.
We are on the right track. Honorable Matthias Mpuga, as the Shadow Minister for Education, you have heard, are we on the right track in relation to this scheme?
Well, the founding objectives and intentions were okay, and still okay, but subject to so many possible relevant interventions. If you were about me to determine how best this could be achieved, I would go for specific interventions in education, because whereas the attainment of education is the right to everybody, getting relevant and useful education at the end of the day, the duty of the state through manpower planning and other multi-stage interventions. My sense currently with the current arrangement is that it's as general as it comes. Initially at the investiture, the argument was that it was going to benefit science students largely. Going down, it seems to be now cutting across. The question of the day, these are loans how relevant are the beneficiaries going to use the skills obtained to be able to get employment and at the end of the day be able to pay back and make this program sustainable? Because through sustainability can only be created by the benefit derived from the initial beneficiaries. I have a concern that going over time, we might miss out on escalating the program to benefit other potential beneficiaries going down the place because it's been so generalized. Secondly, I don't know how best fits into, say, NDP1 and NB2, the national development plans, because then you'd lose the relevancy in as far as the program fits into other national objectives. That's for me my biggest misgiving as far as the investiture program that relate to this project are concerned. Otherwise, I agree and subscribe to the broader intentions, but I would like to see a situation where it actually gets revised over time, over and over, to take into account emerging issues, to take into account manpower challenges, take into account the needs of the younger people and the employment challenge they find, other than making it general.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's bring in Mr. Kaboyo, who is from the Federation of Non-State Educational Institutions. For starters, are your institutions benefiting, as the executive director said?
It's very true that out of the 20 universities, 10 of those implementing the students' loan scheme are private universities.
Okay. You did mention that, you're a researcher in the area of, education, and assess this scheme for us. How is it doing?
I think, to me, of course, every journey has a step that you start with. I think the step we've started with leads us to a good direction. Good direction because education in this country has specific objectives that it delivers on. The first being access and equity. Second being quality. Third being efficiency and effectiveness. Meaning that if these students are accessing loans, they have to bear in mind that they have to pay after. Meaning that when you access a loan, you devise means of making sure that you have a payment schedule or procedure. And we also know the culture of paying back in this country. It should be a subject for another discussion. But that said, I want to say that those who were not accessing higher education have now gotten a chance to at least access. We may ask, okay, they have accessed, what next? I think, to me, institutions that receive those students, together with Michael's office, should strengthen the apprenticeship and internship programming in those institutions so that no one leaves the training and gets deficiencies in terms of what should I do to pay. Okay. But you have been trained with skills which should enable you to have the capacity to pay, because at that level we think that you're acquiring knowledge to innovate, but also to research as a person of higher education.
All right. Let's first bring Mr. Wanyama back. The reports show that currently, out of all the people that have taken the loans, those who've paid back fully are only 3. Is that accurate?
I want to put the record correct. When you get a loan, we give you a grace period. And if you remember, we started in 2014, implying that the first cohort of students who got finished, if you calculate very well, in 2014, 15, 16, 17. Now, with a grace period of 1 year, that means that they have just completed their grace period. You understand? Because we give them 1 year.
Yes, but that will only apply for people who are doing a bachelor's degree. You also have people who are doing diplomas. Diplomas are shorter.
Diploma came on board later. Yeah, when we were beginning, we started with a degree. Then diploma came on board later, 2 years. So in the same vein, the first cohort of diploma, they have just completed. So as I talk now, we have a total of 1,700 students who have completed. But 700 are the ones who have completed the grace period, implying that those are due loans that we must collect.
Okay, and now, how many of the 700 have paid?
Yeah, let me explain. Now, it doesn't mean that when you qualify, you pay all the money at a go, because we know you must go out in the field, get an employment or something gainful that you're doing to be able to pay. Now, if you have done a course, say, of 3 years, we give you, in our projection, we did that trend analysis and got a projection using the government rates of salary, ensuring that as you're also in the field, you must also survive. You want to be able to take care of yourself. So if you took a course of 3 years, you are required to pay that loan in 6 years. You get that projection. So when we do a projection, the two you are talking about, those are the good citizens who came and paid their loan fully during the grace period. You understand? Because there's what we call early repayment. We encourage these students that when you get a loan, and along the way you get something that you are doing that earns you an income, you come and pay back, because we are trying to take them through financial literacy to appreciate that this is a revolving fund. Now, the two are purely good citizens that we have appreciated.
So they're actually 2, not even 3.
Who came and fully paid at a go. The third one you're talking of paid in installments. You get it? But we have a number that have started paying.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Honorable Mpaka.
But there's something, permit me, just bring the house in order. I want to appreciate Honorable Mpuga. These loans are not generalized as of now. We are considering for now we are only sponsoring students who are doing sciences. This is what we call STEM.
When you look at this student loan scheme, the students, for example, it does not cater for accommodation and feeding. And actually, in the first year, around 113 students dropped out of this loan. So I'm not even sure if that money was accounted for. I don't know where that money went. Probably you'll have to tell us more. But generally, when you look at the US, it has a $1 trillion US debt. $1 trillion US dollar debt, yes, because students have failed to pay back this loan. When you look at our situation in Uganda, every year we release 400,000 graduates. According to the Uganda Investment Authority, we can only employ less than half. So in a conservative estimation, that's 150,000. Now, with this kind of situation in the country, students are going to be forced to go abroad for work. These students will never pay back this loan anyway. So I think we still have a challenge, not only in looking for employment for our young people, but also in the education system itself. All
right. Honorable Mpaka, you started by saying that this whole scheme is an illegality, but it was passed by Parliament.
Yes, it was passed by Parliament by then, but according to the Constitution, we are all equal before the law. So when you say you are going to support a certain group of students, for example, taking sciences, that alone is an illegality. When you say you are going to help the poor and the rich, I don't know what you're going to use exactly to determine who is rich and who is poor. That alone is discrimination, because it's supposed to be freedom from discrimination socially, economically, and politically. So this is why I think it was an illegality.
All right. It's time for us to take a break. When we come back from the break, the conversation definitely continues. Stay with us. Welcome back from the break. Thank you for staying with us here on Face the Citizens. I'm your host, Iguma Gabriel. Today, we're looking at the student loan scheme, an intervention that was brought in place by the passing of the Higher Education Student Financing Act. We have in studio Mr. Patrick Kaboyo, National Secretary, Federation of Non-State Educational Institutions, Mr. Michael Wanyama, Executive Director of the Higher Education Student Financing Board, Honorable Matthias Mpuga, Member of Parliament, Masaka Municipality. He is also the Shadow Minister for Education, and the Honorable Mwine Mpaka, Member of Parliament, Youth Member of Parliament, Western Uganda. But in the audience, we have the Honorable Ayaka Rose. She is a woman MP for Maracha. She has joined us, and she is with the young people in the audience. In fact, let's give her a microphone and just hear what do your constituents have to say, or have you heard from your constituents in relation to this student loan scheme?
Thank you very much, moderator and listeners. My name is Ayaka Rosa Tima. I'm the woman member of Parliament for Maracha District. What I have to say in relation to feedback from my constituency is that the loan scheme is good in itself, but the number of issues that needed to be addressed, especially the aspect of the accommodation and transport, and I think this is something which needed to be looked into, especially by the board, because you cannot just give tuition alone and you give allocation for materials which are for learning, and you leave out the other aspects, because a poor person is poor by definition and there's no alternative. So I think it's important they must look at the other aspects and have it in a comprehensive manner.
All right.
Thank you.
Let's first find out, how exactly do you determine that a person is poor and therefore deserving of this loan?
Yes. Yeah, as I come to that, I'm happy that we are joined by members of parliament, because these are the people who appropriate our budget. And,
You're going to ask for more money?
Yes, I'm happy. I'm happy, like my colleague, my friend, Honorable Yaka, what she has raised. Every year we present a budget. And actually, because of the limited resource that we get from parliament, we had to determine. You know, when you have one kindas to be shared amongst your children, what do? They take a piece, isn't it? Now, when the parliament appropriates little resource to us, then we must determine a formula. I'm coming to the question he asked. Because you have a limited resource, and I want to put clarity on this, the law does not discriminate. Every Ugandan who is admitted in an accredited, in a chartered university, doing an accredited course, is eligible to a loan. But also the very law that was passed by parliament determines the eligibility criteria. One, you must be a Ugandan. Two, the body in determining the criteria takes into consideration socioeconomic status, gender, regional balance, and equity. Now, that has been unpacked by the board, because we will now come down and determine what are those things that are common with the poor people. You understand? Now, which we call proxy variables. So we have come up with a number of proxy variables that include schools that you have attended. It's a mix. Schools that you have attended, parents' education background. We here have masters as opposed to our cousins who don't have. What jobs do they do? Issues of orphanage, because you may have gone to Vudo, but you are no orphan, implying Honorable was paying your fees. We want to free him from that burden. Gender, by the way, women, you have 5% out of 100, because we want to lift your numbers. You should be clapping. Yeah, you get it? Yes. Things like persons with disability, you get it? Now, when we mix in this, because all these have weights depending on their correlation to poverty. You understand what I'm saying? Now, when we run these weights, then they place you, me and him. They award you marks based on those proxy variables. And from there, we are able to determine who is the poorest among the poor. By the way, the people we get are all poor. Most of them are poor. But for us, because of the limited resource, we are trying to look at the poorest among the what? The poor.
All right.
That's how we do it.
And so if these and maybe Honorable Mpuga will tell us, if we are taking the poorest of the poor,
Yes.
and we are not creating enough jobs, and you did state that the education majority of these people are getting does not really give them a skill, and yet we're expecting them to pay back, don't we have a formula here for a disaster?
You know, the very reason why, despite his rebuttal, I still insist that it's very generalized. Even if you insist it's science, not all science is essentially generally beneficial. Some sciences are so generic in nature that they're going to lead you to unemployment. I would like to see a more filtered arrangement that would lead this younger person to a job, because what critical job skills are you looking for to solve the problem for which these young people were being sponsored? Two, I listened, I heard very ably the model they use, what they called, how do you term them?
Means testing.
If I ran a statistical
Yeah.
regression model through
Yes.
your approach,
Yes.
I'm very sure your variables are multicollinear. They would lead you to a collision and will not yet give the result that you intended, because
Not
they are not thought through.
The way.
Because if you told me that you'd look at the poverty map of Uganda
Yeah.
and come up with who would benefit, would agree.
All right.
Because
Let's actually
you're not helping the poor per
let's
se.
actually look at that, Mr. Kaboyo. it did state that, yes, we'll look at how poor a person is. As we look at it, poverty in Uganda is highest in eastern and northern. However, when we look at the figures, the people who are receiving the most loans are from western Uganda, with 2017, 538 in total receiving. We have eastern Uganda coming next, central, and then north being the last. Are these loans really going to the people that need them?
First of all, I want to thank you for this debate. You know, it opens up room for further research, reflection, but also interrogation. You know for sure that in this country, scholarships, for instance, are offered to those who don't deserve them.
Yeah.
And those who deserve
Get lost.
sometimes don't get them. I also want to state...
The audience seems to be agreeing. We should go to the audience very soon.
Yes. I also want to say that in this, the students' loan scheme, we are now addressing an issue only of students' loans, but it also has scholarships. And in so doing, for me, I would want us not to kill the good scheme at this time, but invest in how to review it and make it better and strengthen the existing office to ensure that it works. But as we speak now, for me, the focus should be on increasing more money in the scheme by withdrawing it from the 4,000 government-sponsored students that government sponsors. Remember, those 4,000 are from the A class that pay millions of shillings, that have pocket money of VD, which is $1 million or $2 million. And these are the people you are chasing with your subvention or your capitation or your support at university, where you think that this girl, or maybe a daughter of Honorable Matthias, is going to stay in Lumumba Hall. But you might
No, there are no girls in Lumumba Hall.
Sorry, in Mary Stewart. Sorry, in Mary Stewart. I was referring to him as a gentleman. In Mary Stewart. You may find that the daughter will say, Mary Stewart does not befit my status. And this girl will choose to go and rent out.
Yeah.
But as they do that, universities are not telling us exactly of the 4,000 students who actually consume that money. You'll find that that money is idle, which should be moved to be given to Michael to beef up, because literally poor people are too many.
All right.
We are spending where we should not.
All right, Honorable does not agree with that, but let's take questions from the audience very quickly. But first, put your hands down. Is there anybody in this audience who has benefited from the student loan scheme? Please put your hand up. Oh, there are two people. Let's start with the gentleman over here. An assessment of this scheme. How did you benefit from this loan scheme? How did you end up benefiting?
So it was through application. I applied and I didn't put anything, and I was given.
Okay.
And certainly I appear to be a very poor person.
Yes, go right ahead.
The board, I'm aware it has limited resources, even though it wants to provide everything. But I also want to put in perspective that you rather have unemployed youth than having an educated youth.
Okay. If I may ask, how did the board or anyone verify that you actually were deserving, you were actually poor?
No, that is up to them. They give us
No,
forms.
I'm asking, did they come to you and verify in some way?
No,
So they just believed you from your form,
the application form.
from the application?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Let's take the other gentleman who's also benefited.
My name is Kaderere Gerard.
Yes, Gerard.
I'm studying from Makerere University.
What course?
Bachelor's in Environmental Health Science.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you end up qualifying for this loan?
Well, I had these loans, the loan scheme beneficiary, the science students, and I'd done BCM.
Okay.
So I had to go pick my form in Imbare, centenary branch. And I failed. I applied and brought it to Mapela. I handed in then.
Okay.
I just found myself on the list.
You found yourself on the list.
Yeah,
What
when-
secondary school did you go to? Because we were told also the school you went to contributes. If the school
Yeah.
was a relatively poor school, yeah.
For my primary, I
No, for your secondary.
Second, I attended the school is in Kaliro Kodi, Nkono Memorial. Then high school, that's A level. I went to Gombes, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Would you refer to those as poor schools?
Well, in Gombes, yes, I was sponsored by someone.
Ah, okay. All right. Do you have any question? Do you have any question? If you don't, if you could pass the microphone to the lady
My
in front
question
of you.
is,
Yes, please.
well, as we fill the request forms, because we fill request form per semester, but you get sometimes
Per semester?
yes.
Which means every semester you have to request?
Your request. Now you fill the form but the loan scheme sponsors, they take long to pay the loans to the university.
Or to
And you
remit the
get
money to the
surcharges.
university.
The university implements surcharges on the AIMS system, like it for Makelele. That surcharge is paid by the students. How will you be helping us in such?
All right. Thank you. But before you leave that microphone, just one more question. Are you confident that you'll be able to pay back?
Well, I'm confident, but still, there's need for some other benefits like the accommodation, feeding allowance, and
all right,
maybe transport.
Okay, let's take the lady.
The poor, the more.
Thank you so much, moderator. My name is Munira Nalunga from Uganda Youth Network. So the Uganda Students Higher Education Financing Policy dictates that we have to ensure regional balance in higher education, but also other services in Uganda. So with on a view and in regard to the student loan scheme, we've continually registered low participation from certain regions, such as northeastern Uganda, among others, but also low female participation in regard to the male participants. So is there a deliberate attempt as a board to bring these regions on board, but also more females on board? Thank you so much.
I am by name Nagawa Arnold from Barara district, and I come from Makerere University. So in most cases, people who acquire this loan have to pass through various politicians, various government officials in order to attain them, because I, for one, I have my relatives who have benefited from it, but they have passed through long processes. So my MP, Mr. Mwini Mpaka,
Honorable Mpaka.
Yeah.
I hope you're not giving him your application now.
No. I would like him to clarify more on that.
All right. My panel is taking down those questions. We need to go for a break right now. When we come back from the break, we'll take 2 more questions and then we'll have the panel responding. Please stay tuned to Face the Citizen. Welcome back from the break. Thank you very much for staying with us here on Face the Citizens. I'm your host, Igoma Gabriel, with a panel of 4 and a live audience. We're discussing the student loan scheme. We asked a few questions before we went for the break. Let's respond to those questions and then take a few more questions. Mr. Wanyama, let's start with you.
Thank you so much. You know, in whatever I'm discussing here, we also have a few challenges that we meet. And one of the biggest challenges is funds. And I want to agree with my son here, whom we have sponsored, whom I didn't know. You know, his statement carries a lot of weight. When he said you'd rather have, I want to add there the word temporal unemployment than having permanent uneducated. His statement was very strong. Because he said unemployment to me could be temporal, given the kind of course that you have done along the way. Now, just to go back to the question, someone said we take long to pay. I don't think this is true. And because immediately we get money, like now we have cleared it for first semester, we are clearing for second semester.
Yeah, but he's a beneficiary and he's saying that he's had to pay surcharges because of late payment.
That's what I wanted to go to. And the issue of surcharge, we have discussed with universities. But you know, universities have their policy. Actually, some of them, most of them, we have not paid the surcharge. The only problem, I think, they continue billing the student. Because we have told them, we draw from the same source of funds. We draw from consolidated fund. Universities, especially public, are also aware that when we delay to get the money, The same happens to them. So that matter, we are discussing it with the universities because that will increase the loan book of the student. Surely that's very unfair. And we have refused to pay
All right,
such
and the times the money comes late, why? Why does it come late when it does?
Oh, it's issue now remittances from Minister of Finance. Sometimes we get this money a little late, but like I'm assuring you, all the invoices we got for the second semester, we have paid them.
All right.
Yeah.
All
Now,
right.
the other one is, that's what I was explaining, my sister, the issue of regional balance, the issue of women empowerment. I did explain that in our scorecard, which has a number of variables, gender balance, women have 5% against men. Now, in terms of regional balance, someone mentioned about South and West. Let me give you the statistics. This year round, we got 1,900 applicants from Western. You gave an example. And about 1,300 got. We got only 409 from Northern and 326. So in terms of mathematical calculation, North performed better. But the issue is you must first apply. You get it? Even recently, we have held a number of sensitization seminars in the northern part of the country, just to kind of encourage them that let your children apply.
Northern Uganda being one of the poorest regions in the country, how come people are not applying?
It's a bigger problem. Mr. Kavoya, I've had meetings with him and he will share with you.
Okay.
The issues of sciences, and he can talk about.
So the issue is because of sciences?
Yeah, because of the schools. You get smaller numbers of people
All
applying.
right. So let's just analyze that again. In order for a school to do well at sciences, it has to have a laboratory.
Exactly.
An equipped laboratory.
Exactly.
That means the school has to be a good school.
Exactly.
But you're saying that we'll give this to poor students who go to poor schools
Let me
that
address
cannot have a laboratory.
No, let me address that.
And is basically in poor regions. And you still think this is fair?
No. You are aware every school now, government has put their laboratories. The issue...
No, a laboratory without equipment is just a room.
Let me tell you, most of these schools have a laboratory. The issue is teachers.
These are the people that go to those schools.
No,
they were recently
let me
those
explain.
schools.
I've been in education and I know these things.
All right.
The biggest problem and the challenge we have is that most of the teachers posted in these schools report and leave. These schools don't have teachers.
All right.
The biggest problem is teachers, not equipment.
Okay.
I want to tell you.
Mr. Kaboy, very quickly.
Yes. You see, sometimes viewers and the audience, you reap what you sow. You cannot give what you don't have. For you to pass sciences implies that you should have got good teachers who know what they are teaching. And you know that bees, for instance, these flowers to get.
So a whole region is missing out at O level, and also at university.
Missing out means that, as I said earlier on, like we have not come here to discuss who is winning, who is losing. We have come to discuss how to improve
Yes.
and review, and if there are researchers...
Honorable Mpaka, one of the
should
things
take it up.
Honorable Mpaka said is
Yes.
that it is discriminatory. And this is one level of discrimination that we are highlighting.
Let me tell you that from the design of education, from its inception, was meant to discriminate. But largely, we have gone. Yes, we have gone. No, it is a fact that when the missionaries came,
All right.
they were
Well,
giving
unfortunately,
education
we
to
can't
sons
go.
and daughters of chiefs.
We can't go deep into
But we
that.
have gone improving it.
All right.
And
Exactly,
it should not
exactly.
be discriminatory.
All right. Honorable Mpaka.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm very shocked someone saying that education was meant to be discriminatory. Education is a common good meant for all that belongs to all.
All right. Honorable Matthias, how do we even start to solve these issues?
You see, we don't seem to be coalescing around a solution. He says he'd rather have the 4,000 going to public universities reduced and sponsor these ones. You see, you want to punish people for being bright and going into university on merit. That would be discrimination, and I wouldn't subscribe to an arrangement that discourages good performance and rewards mediocrity. So that should remain and only work to streamline this one. Two, I would like to advise young people that education and employment are not tradable rights, that you trade one for another. These must move in consonance and we must promote them. And we must force government to remove resources from redundant areas and promote these two rights, the right to education and the right to employment. So I don't want to hear something like, I'd rather be educated than and unemployed, these are not tradable rights.
Okay.
So if you do that, then you're not helping the cause of education and purpose of education.
All right, let's take some more questions. Yes, madam.
Thank you very much. My name is Nampija Jacqueline from Uganda Youth Network. So when I was reading about the loan scheme, it is the time period, the overall time period for paying back is 7 years. So my question is why? Because you find that different universities have different tuitions they pay for the same courses, right? But also, when you look at someone who is doing a bachelor's and one who is in a tertiary institution, yes, the time period is different. So I think this should be revised. That's my recommendation. It should be revised. But also one more, in addition, when you look at, after one has completed their studies, they're supposed to deduct 30% in case they're employed, 30% on the salary they are getting. This should also be revised because someone may be getting 2 million, another person may be getting 500. Why the 30% standard? Thank you.
Okay, my name is Amonya Venda. I'm a student of Makerere doing social science. My question goes to Mr. Michael Wanyama. After applying, do they make follow-ups? Like when I say I'm from a very deep school, do they go up to there and they follow up whether I was once a student there?
All right.
Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Naya Sam. I'm a student of Makerere University doing Bachelor of Veterinary Medicine. My question is about the students doing like a 4 years course and all along he gets a scholarship or someone to pay his or her tuition. So how does the board put into consideration?
So if I've already taken a loan and then I get somebody sponsor me, yes, okay.
Yes,
all right.
Because you've gotten a scholarship.
Okay. We're going to start from Mr. Kaboyo and then we'll come this way and basically respond to any question if it was put to you and then you can give a recommendation, a way forward.
Yes, thank you very much, Gabriel. I want to state again that when you are paying for university or higher institution, there should be a unit cost. So in terms of the unit cost, my emphasis was on withdrawing part of the 4,000, at least leave them with the academic allocation and have the others of accommodation, feeding, the rest to cater for these who are poor. Otherwise, you should be spending where it is necessary other than putting there much money, and also reducing on the public expenditure to ensure that now we are spending for human capital development in real time to address unemployment and youth disorientation, which we are trying to struggle with patriotism when people are poor, but we have to give people what they deserve.
All right. Honorable Matthias.
Yes, I will speak in general terms. I think the revision must target to improve on two critical areas, relevancy and access. Then, of course, access to target those people who are most deserving, but also guard a third to address issues of employability, which is why I would go specifically vocational and leave flowery university education and address those jobs needed by the community. You have an emerging oil and gas industry is lacking critical job skills. So what do you do with it? You have all these new areas where people need critical skills of diplomas and certificates. You are training people to get degrees and end up on the street. So I would address 3 areas if I'm going to revise this, and it's very urgent.
And as MPs, can you actually address those areas?
Certainly, we can only wait for a time when it is due, the budgeting period, and ask of the minister to address these key areas. Okay. Certainly, you are aware of how we are scattered some of these things. We need to get leadership over these matters and find a way of addressing them, but it's very critical and urgent.
All right. Can somebody give Honorable Ayaka a microphone? I'd like also to get a recommendation from her before I come to this side of the panel.
We need to address those underlying factors that lead to poor performance, especially in the areas, especially those areas of Eastern Uganda, Northern Uganda, where performances of students are so poor. We need to address those underlying factors to make sure that we equip our schools with the modern, modern labs, and also to have the teachers who should be motivated to make sure that those issues that lead to poor performance in the schools are addressed, so that we can also have this balancing. Because if other areas are benefiting from, a government initiative, then it is a disservice to the other people in the country. So these issues must be addressed according to what I see.
All right. Honorable Mpaka.
Thank you very much. I think Agaba, it's Agaba? Agaba, who said that I should help him, connect him so that he can get this loan.
Just I talked about the long processes which people have to do in order to obtain.
Oh, okay. I think that is a policy matter. I think as members of parliament, we shall do our best to review not only that part, but the whole student loan scheme. Yes, and just some advice to Mr. Wanyama. I think you need this more than anyone, and probably get a larger forum where you can discuss with the young people, specifically the beneficiaries. You don't want this to end up like the Youth Livelihood Fund. If a government wants to go the industrialization way, that's when it invests in sciences. Unfortunately, right now, we are not sure where our government wants the economy to head. So I don't see why we should invest in science.
All right, Mr. Wanyama.
Yeah, thank you so much. Of course, they are raising very pertinent issues, but I also want to agree with the Honorable Mpuga. Just like even Kavoyo stated, in addressing this scheme, we put our emphasis on the objectives of the education sector, properly outlined in the strategic plan. That's access, quality, and relevance. And I think we have tried as much as possible to do that. Now, my friend, the process of applying is not tedious, and you do not need to go through any person. Even on that form, we have put it very clearly that you don't need to go through any person, you don't need to pay any money for it. So whoever has told you need the politician, please ignore that.
All right.
Just apply. Then in terms of...
finally, please, because we're out of time.
Finally, I just want to call upon those who have gotten money, because this is a revolving fund, that let them pay back so that other students in more or less similar situation like theirs can also access this money. And I also want to make an appeal to members of parliament to increase the budget for the loan scheme. Okay. Because it has been proven that we are putting this money to correct use and widening access to higher education.
All right,
thank you so much.
Thank you very much. The student loan scheme is a scheme that's supposed to benefit all Ugandans that would like to attain higher education. It is therefore in your best interest that you look at this scheme critically to ensure that those that are deserving are the ones who are benefiting from it. From me and our panel, thank you very much for being part of the show. Until next time, when we have another show, goodbye, God bless you.